Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Scrambling and Rambling, the podcast with Becca and Greg. I am one of your hosts, Greg, and I am joined, as always, by my favorite co-host, Becca. Becca, how are you?
Aw, aw. I'm good now that I know I'm your favorite co-host.
Well, you're my only co-host,
That's
but still, you
incredible.
still won the award as favorite, so
Wow.
we'll
Thank
give you
you.
credit for that.
Thank
It's
you.
spring now; it's starting to get
hmm
nice out. We didn't even have winter, so it feels weird to say that it's nice to be in spring.
Yeah.
And when I think of spring, I think of spring training. I think of Arizona, which brings
Mm.
us to our next guest. Becca, who do
Yes.
we have with us today?
Yes. Today's guest is an outdoors content creator, brain surgery survivor, and host of Trail Mixed on Arizona PBS. She's Kristen Keogh. Welcome, Kristen.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Greg, I've been a huge fan for a long time.
Oh,
I remember
thank you.
following you back when you had like 20 or 30,000 followers, and I just loved your content. So it's awesome that we get to chat. And Becca, so nice to meet you.
Yeah, great to meet you too. Thank you for joining us. And I always like to ask if there are aspects of identity that I either got wrong or that you would like to add.
You know what? I think that for me, a big part of my description of myself is that I'm also a mommy. I love hiking with my son, and he's a huge reason why I am also a outdoors advocate. And I don't consider myself just a content creator or a TV host. I really consider myself an advocate for our public lands. So it's a really important thing to me. I should probably add that to my Instagram bio, Becca.
Definitely. Yeah. And I was watching some of your content and I was like, yeah, there's so much great, like you share such great information,
Thank
is
you.
so important for people who are recreating.
I appreciate that. I really try to take it beyond just telling people about what they can do, but I try to educate people about how to be responsible and be safe. Especially being in Arizona, we have a lot of hiking rescues all the time. Obviously, we have heat, we have rattlesnakes. We had even a bobcat attack here in our area a few weeks ago or a couple months ago. So there's just always a lot to consider hiking anywhere, but Arizona's a sort of rough place.
It definitely has extremes to it. Like, because even what surprises me is I went out there in the spring. It was in February, I think, a couple years ago, and it got really cold at night too. And that's not what you
Yeah.
think of. You're like, oh, it's 80 degrees during the day. It's going to be nice, but it gets really cold at night.
It's interesting because, a few years ago at this time it was snowing. I'm not kidding. We got snow in Phoenix, and I actually want to look at, if I can pull it up fast enough, just how hot it is right now. I actually used to be a weather forecaster here in Phoenix, and so I can tell you that it's much hotter than it typically would be in March. It's 91 degrees in Phoenix right now. The low is 66. So if you can get out in the morning, it's like the perfect hiking weather. But we see a lot of danger this time of year as we transition into summer because our bodies are adjusting and people they're not in the mindset yet. Mindset
Mm.
is so important in hiking. And people just aren't necessarily thinking when they start their hike, even at 7 a.m., if they don't get off the trail in time, it's going to get really, really hot. And they're just not thinking about it the way that they would in a few months.
We also have our winter insulation layer still on, which I like to advocate for because, there's no better heat in the winter than your own heat.
Mm.
Yeah. I always joke too. I'm like, I am in my best shape at the end of hiking season. So in Arizona,
Yeah.
it really is good. By the time you gotta put on a swimsuit, you've been hiking all winter. So it's nice. But then we're like the opposite of the rest of the country where we're stuck inside in the
In the
summer.
summer,
So
yeah.
it's just flip flopped. Yeah.
True. And did you grow up in Arizona?
I did. I'm from a city called Surprise. Have you guys ever heard of it?
I actually
Surprise.
have, yeah.
Yeah. So I technically grew up on a piece of land that my dad bought because he wanted to live in the middle of nowhere, which at the time I didn't understand, but the older I get, the more I also want to be in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
nowhere. And it was weird because technically an unincorporated piece of land in the county it's like county land, and then they kept changing what city we lived in. So there's like a retirement community. It was like the closest thing, Sun
Mm.
City, Arizona, and then they added like Sun City West. So then our zip code would change and our city would change. And so finally we landed on Surprise when I was like 10. And now I joke because nobody lived out there at the time. There were no kids there. I say I'm the only person older than 10 years old who's like from Surprise, because now there's a ton of kids there. But growing up there,
Sure.
we had to drive like 45 minutes to school. But I do think that growing up, like literally in the middle of nowhere, driving down dirt roads, I do think that that's a big part of why I feel most comfortable in the outdoors.
That
Yeah,
was
I
going to be
was
my next question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I think there's a difference of people who get into the outdoors as they get older in life. I'm one of those. Like I didn't hike at all until I turned 40, and then I started hiking and fell in love with it. And then the people that grow up with it, like, are you seeing that? You get a lot of people who move to Arizona later in life. Are you seeing people that are like just taking up the hiking or the outdoors later in life, or is it just kind of people that have done it their whole time?
We do see that. And what's weird is that when it comes to hiking, I am one of those. I did not grow up hiking. I grew up being very
Mhm.
comfortable in the outdoors, because we were just always out playing in the dirt and riding quads, that type of thing. But I didn't start hiking until I was like 18. I went to Arizona State University and I was an NHL cheerleader. I was on the entertainment team for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I felt a lot of pressure to stay very fit. And so we have these two strenuous mountains here right in the middle of our city, Camelback Mountain and Payastoa Peak. It's like, you're going 1,000 feet straight up in 1 mile. And it's like, Payastoa Peak is my favorite. It's like an outdoor Stairmaster. And I did it just to stay fit. I hate being in the gym. So I was like, this is great. This is something I can do. And it wasn't until later on, once I was like out of college, out of cheerleading, that type of thing, when I actually started doing hiking because I enjoyed it. And there are a lot of people in Arizona who don't hike until later. They just moved here. We have so many transplants. And so like a big part of the show that I host is making sure that people who are new here and want to get out and hike have the knowledge to do so safely.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us about your show and like how did you get into that? How did that get started? Yeah.
So I host a show called Trail Mixed on Arizona PBS. And crazy enough, I used to be a news anchor and weather forecaster, as I mentioned. I never planned on going back to television after I had my son, who's now 5.5. So I left television in 2021 when he was still tiny. Um, I had brain surgery in March of last year, and they had to remove a mass from the middle of my brain. And then I got a post surgical blood clot and had to go back into the hospital. I was on blood thinners. I was using a walker. I could not orient myself like in the world. Like I just couldn't. I felt like the world was spinning. Like I couldn't find my way through life for a minute. It was really horrible. And I spent 3 days in the hospital, mostly by myself. And, at this point, it was a little bit after the surgery. Like my family, my fiance, like they had to go back to real life. And I'm still here trying to recover. And it was so much alone time. And I just remember thinking, what do I want to do with my life if I ever go back to normal? Because at that point, I wasn't sure I would. It was this super scary feeling where I was extremely aware I was no longer me. And the people around me said I had an extreme personality change, and I could tell I was different. And I just thought, okay, if you get to be Kristen again, what do you want to do? And so before my brain surgery, Arizona PBS had posted a casting call to host this show, Trail Mix, and they were looking for an avid hiker who could educate other people and take them on these hikes. And my friends at Arizona State Parks sent me the casting call, and they were like, hey, you'd be great for this. And I actually ended up emailing it to my best friend, and I said, hey, I'm not going to be able to do this because I have to have brain surgery next month. But you should try out for this. And I actually even contacted the team at Arizona PBS, and I said, hey, I'd love to do this, but I have this health thing going on. So I was sitting in the hospital, and I was like, what would I like to do with my life? And I was like, I'd really like to host that show. And a couple weeks after I got out of the hospital, I was still on steroids, I was still on painkillers. My fiance and I went across the street from my house over to the Mountains Preserve, and I filmed the worst audition tape of my entire life. And I even started off by saying, like, this is going to be a really bad audition tape. But I showed pictures of my hiking, my big hikes like Half Dome, my little local hikes. Like, there's a little, like, 1 mile hike I did with my baby boy. I showed them all these pictures, so they got a really good idea of, I'm it's no joke for me. Like, hiking is my life. And I did the in-person interview for that job, still feeling out of my mind. My fiance had to drive me. I couldn't even drive yet. And I did this intense interview where it was like all these people talking to me. I'm on camera. The lights are on. I'm doing an impromptu interview with a park ranger. And to be honest with you guys, I nailed it. And I said, this is proof I could host in my sleep.
So how much do you think that getting this show, working and like just being outdoors again, how much did that kind of motivate you and help you on your healing journey?
I don't think I would have progressed in my healing as quickly as I did without having this show to really force me to go back out on the trail. And they asked me at my audition, it's a real thing. Like, can you do the job? I said, I think so, depending on when we start. And I said, I think so, but I was kind of nervous. So I actually, before we filmed the show, before we started filming the hikes, I went and climbed to the highest point in Arizona, Humphreys Peak in Flagstaff, because I needed that confidence boost. Like, okay, can I do this? So I did the hardest one that I could get to. And I was like, okay, I can host this show. And I genuinely think that having that job, putting me on the trail, just expedited my healing, if you will. I mean, it's crazy. I was using a walker and then hosting a show like a few months later on the trail.
A show about walking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is amazing.
Wow. Do you feel like it was the hiking? Was it the show? Was it both that you feel like helped heal you? Like, or it helped you kind of like heal faster?
Yeah, I think that it was just, it was knowing that God kept me here for a reason. And I am very religious. And in those 3 days, I spent a lot of time praying and writing out Bible verses. And I made a vision board with those Bible verses and with pictures of myself hiking, pictures of myself with my son. And I just think that I knew God kept me here for some reason. And it might sound silly, but I do think that reason was for me to educate people and get people outdoors and have their lives change the way that the outdoors changed mine.
I love that. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about the show. So is it available? Like, if I don't live in Arizona, can I still watch the show?
Absolutely. So we have a YouTube channel, of course, the Arizona PBS YouTube channel. And every week we upload a new episode of Trail Mix. And then it's also on the Arizona PBS app. And you can follow me on social media too. So I'm always sharing like clips of it as well. We feature so much cool stuff that's just interesting information, even if you're not in Arizona. It's safety hiking tips or touring a rescue helicopter that's used when hikers get injured. And then also, you might want to plan a trip to Arizona, and we're really kind of like a tour guide on this show, showing you around these places.
Are there things that you've learned because you've hosted the show? Like, obviously you came in with a lot of knowledge, but are there things that have either that you've learned or that have surprised you as you've been hosting?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that what I'm most proud of in hosting this show is, really teaching people not just about the trails, but about the land and the animals and sometimes even the people who live there. So our first episode of this season took place in Monument Valley. And there are indigenous people who still live in Monument Valley. And so when you hike there, it's really important that you're being respectful to those people who call it home. And what we learned is that when you're hiking out there, there used to be uranium mines in that area. And those mines were used to get the uranium that was used in the bombs used in World War II. And there is such an ongoing health crisis for the Navajo people because of these uranium mines. And I never would have known that if we didn't go out exploring there. And just learning this deep history that you're literally walking on, and we're out there having fun, but there is a dark side of this that changed and destroyed some people's lives. And it just opens your eyes. And that's the best part of finding a new place to go on an adventure, is that you can leave any situation with more knowledge and more empathy if you're paying attention to the land, to the people, to the animals. So that's definitely the most significant thing that I have discovered so far in hosting this show. It's also just been really cool. On a lighter note, we did a geocaching episode. I never would have gone geocaching. And what a fun way to get people inspired to get outside. It's kind of like playing Pokemon Go. There's a free app for it. And some of these hikes are like short. You could get kids excited to get outdoors with this. And there are just all of these different ways that you can connect with nature, connect with the land. And I never would have thought of geocaching if it weren't for my producer Rebecca being like, we should do geocaching on an episode. And I got recognized at Costco the next day, and this lady was like, I need to try geocaching. I was like, do it. It's so fun. And my 5-year-old watched the episode, and he was like, Mommy, I want to go do that. And I showed him the stuff that I got out of the geocache. And it was really cool because in the first geocache that we got, there was a necklace in it with a T on it. And my son's name is Teddy. And so I was like, this was meant for me. So it's so fun. Nice. But there's just been something every single trail that has made me love nature more. And what I love about being out there and learning is you just realize how small your problems are, how blessed you are to have the opportunity. I mean, especially for me after having brain surgery, just having the opportunity, having the privilege to be out here. And I'm so grateful that so many of these places in Arizona, someone many, many years ago had the foresight to protect them, because we have the preserve, the Phoenix Mountain Preserve and the McDowell Sonoran Preserve, all these areas where we've had rapid urban sprawl, and we can still go hiking in the middle of our city. And I'm just so grateful to the people who protected them, and that our city has maintained that. And like Monument Valley, the Navajo people do not have to let us in with our cameras, and they were so kind to us. And I'm just so grateful for all of the access that we've been able to get. And I just hope that we're able to inspire more people to go explore these places and really appreciate them.
And I really agree with the knowledge you get from going out to all of these places. That's one of the things I've learned. I've hiked in like 8 states now, and I've tried to hike in all the counties of Colorado, and I go to all the small towns and find a locally owned restaurant there to celebrate as well. And you talk to the people there, you talk to the person at the diner, the owner, the waiter, waitress, and find out about the area. And you learn so much about, the different areas around the state that most people will never know. They might drive by, drive through it, drive past it, not even think about it. I also had a uranium story. I was driving to New Mexico and ended up in this place called Church Rock because I was really tired and I wanted to go do a hike. And it turns out that was like where one of the trucks that was coming from Monument Valley tipped over and spilled. And there was like, and I had no idea. And I'm like, this is a great hike. And then I'm looking it up afterwards and I'm like, oh, okay, but there's so much wonder about, there's so many wonderful places you can go. I do have this is a very specific to Arizona question.
Okay.
There